Okay, so welcome to the end of PS HS 6240 here at George Washington University's Homeland Security program. For most of you, end of your first course, so congratulations. I know you still have the final paper and the final to do, but I think you're almost there. So I just wanted to take a second just to review kind of the course for a minute, and then I want to redo this Adobe Connect session, or a WebEx session, I should say, that we did last Thursday. And I just want to make sure everyone's got it about jobs and careers as we go forward. So, again, welcome to the end of the course. I hope this course gave you, as I mentioned in the first day, an understanding of terrorism beyond the soundbite, beyond what we see on cable news and in the blogs. That should have, I hope, that this kind of gave you at least a framework to look at terrorism. The next time there's a terrorist attack, even the incident we had a couple of days ago with the Coast Guard, a right wing extremist, hopefully you can look at that and have a better understanding of how he became radicalized, how he was caught. Would he have been caught if it had not been for he had been in the military, if he was just a normal civilian? What was the threshold to get an investigation and get him arrested? Those questions hopefully will go through your head. Hopefully they went through your head on Thursday, and then the next time there's an incident, it goes through. So I'm hoping that's what you heard. I hope you had an understanding of history. This isn't a history class, and I am not a historian, but history guides us. History rhymes. It gives us a framework to understand this. And that's why I went in and I talked about the four waves, and I talked about the FLN, and I talked about the Irgun. Those patterns that we saw back then, back 60, 70 years ago, are repeating themselves in ISIS and Al Qaeda and even in right wing extremists. So I hope you can look at, again, the current problem from the historical perspective. We looked at the road to 9/11, and that should also be the road to what's going on now in Syria and Iraq. Those issues that we're seeing in Syria and Iraq predate the last 5-10 years. They go back 100 years. And I hope the documentary that you saw and the history we talked about can guide you as we move forward. We talked about terrorist adaptation. And again, I can't emphasize this enough. The patterns that we go forward, whether it's different groups that we've seen in the past, will replicate themselves in ISIS and Al Qaeda or whatever else comes next. And then in week 5, we talked about policy. We compared and contrast the EU, the United States, and Israel. And then in week 6, we talked about intelligence failures and why we still have them in our post 9/11 world, despite billions, trillions spent on. And then in the final week, we talked about contemporary issues, the domestic radicalization that really was highlighted in that video that you saw in the documentary, the Showtime documentary, American Jihad. We talked about drone targeting, which again was a very debatable point, but some people say it's effective, while others say it's a humanitarian atrocity. I'll let you decide which one is the other. And that kind of wrapped up the course. I think we hit all the key modules, and I hope, again, you can take this going forward for this program and forward in your careers. So moving on to job talk. This is for the people that saw this on Thursday. There's no need to keep watching. But if you didn't see this, let me just emphasize that I think that you're in this program, for your education, which is important, for the credential of having an advanced degree. But I think you're in it, again, for career advancement, job advancement. I think you're owed that with the $30,000 or how much you're paying for this program. I think you're owed the ability to advance yourself or break into a career in the Homeland Security or an intelligence community defense contractor. The way I see it is I can be a resource for you. I think that's what you get. I can't speak for all the faculty, but as tuition-paying members of GW, I think you get me as a resource going forward. So feel free to link in with me. Feel free to, if you want to give me a call and grab coffee, I'm amenable to that. I've done that with plenty of your students, our past students. If you want to grab coffee after you've graduated and you want to talk careers, that's fine too. I am more than happy to sit down and talk one-on-one with you going forward, especially if you're in the DC area. So this is kind of just what I hit the high points for in my job talk. I had a lot of questions about military transitions. People who came out of the military and are trying to break into various career fields. And I have a kind of a top 10 list I think is relevant to them, but it'll be also relevant if you're transitioning from a different career or even a college graduate, brand new college graduate, trying to move up. So kind of here's the top 10 lists that I have. Factor in everything. If you're in the military, you get pretty well compensated, period. You also get pretty well compensated if you throw in your untaxed basic allowance for housing, medical, lower deductibles, lower no co-payments. You don't get those in the civilian world. So make sure you factor that in going forward. Don't copy and paste your OER, NCOER, Navy Fitness Report bullets. Do not mention how much property you were accountable for. There's somebody probably in the military on the other end who has read or knows what an OER is and know what these things are. That's not an achievement. An achievement would be, the top 20 or out of 20 officers was the top one in my battalion or my squadron. That would signify something. Started a program from the ground up and it was used by a 3-star general. That means something. I signed for $50,000 of stuff. Doesn't really mean anything. Professional niche resume, especially for federal employment or defense contractor IC stuff. I would get a niche resume to write yours. I paid $200 for mine. I think it's worth it. And if you have questions, I can refer you to some people. But I would just do that your first one and then have someone update it going forward. No one to have formalities. Don't expect to be treated like the Queen of England. I've worked with everyone from privates to sergeants to captains to colonels, or Navy captains as well. And, certain people expect to be treated as if they're still colonels or sergeant majors. It's always the colonels and the sergeant majors that I always have the issue with. No one's going to care about your rank beforehand. No one has secretaries. No one's going to call you sir or whatever. People have a hard time transitioning out when they've been given that type of authority or perceived authority in their military careers. Understand benefits. Know what a 401k is, PPO, HMO. These are basic understandings that you need to know what it is when you go into the private sector. Know your worth. Glassdoor.com is a great website that explains your salary, whether it's a company or whether you're an Intel analyst or a logistics person. Use that to get a good idea of your worth. I always get a bunch of transitioning either captains or Navy 03 types. You'll probably get a salary cut. You make a lot of money as in the military, particularly you're at that level. You'll probably get a salary cut unless you have some niche skill that defense contractors like, whether it's cyber or intelligence or something like that. You'll probably get a salary cut. This is a very hard one to say, but I'm going to say it. It's easier in the civilian world and sometimes it's harder. When I say easier in the civilian world, probably the hours are a little bit less. You don't go for 6 months at a time or 9 months at a time. No one's going to shoot at you unless you're in certain law enforcement positions. So in some cases it's easier, but it's harder. And if you work in the private sector, you're going to be making X, and someone's going to ask constantly, you better be bringing in X plus Y into the company. When I worked at business development for a defense contractor that both worked civilian or private sector and public sector, we mapped everyone's productivity down to the dollar. It's a very, very cutthroat world, and we went into that level of detail. No one asks you that in the military. No one asks your salary and are you bringing in that much more money. So make sure you contribute. Always go in, how do I contribute to the bottom line of the company? How do I increase sales? How do I bill out more hours? Whatever you have to do. Someone's going to be asking that question if you're not asking that yourself. Get inside your boss's head. Make his or her life easier. That's how you get advancement. Know what's going on 2 levels up so you can make your senior bosses happier. Don't expect automatic promotions or assignments. Big difference in the military. No one says, oh, you've been here 10 years, you're due a promotion. Unlike the military where they promote you to major at 10 years and colonel at this year or sergeant at 5 years or what have you. In fact, the only way to get promoted now, based on what I've seen, is to take a new job. That's no one's going to promote you in the office. You have to apply, network to get a new job, so you get promoted. That's kind of the way that things are moving now. So there's an issue, federal contractor. Some people work on the federal side. Some people work on the contractor side. I've worked both. Fed opportunities to advance are there. A little bit easier the contract or in the federal side. There's fellowships. If you want to work in different areas, no contractor is going to allow you to work in different areas unless there's a immediate need. If you're a federal employee, you can change an organization. If you're a contractor, that organization's your client, and you don't want to rock the boat. Fortunately for Fed, there's other issues. There's furlough. A lot of people have experienced this in the last month. Contractors do not get furloughed when those things happen. And Fed, in the past, but it's actually changing, the pay was a little bit lower. But that's kind of might be changing a little bit now. Contractor tends to be higher pay, but not always. Higher pay tends to be in those very niche jobs, cyber, red teaming, intelligence. A little bit more flexibility as contractor, but less job security. Now, when I say less job security, the contract could get renewed or not get renewed, could get turned over, but I've worked these issues, and if you do a good job, you're going to get hired on by the new company. In fact, I've been on a federal side, and I've told the new company, hire this person and make that person happy because they're doing such a good job. So just like anything else, if you do a good job, you'll advance. The one thing I'll just say is hiring is sometimes very difficult on the federal side. The best recommendation I can give you is if you don't have a clearance, you don't have military experience, try and use the George Washington Network to get in with a large defense contractor, Booz Allen, SAIC, Leidos, BAE Systems, and then try and get them to pay for a clearance. That's the best thing I can ask. The best way to get into whatever job you want to look at. Federal employees are it's hard to get in without certain internships and experience that I'll talk about in a second. This is the USA Jobs resume. It's a lot different than you would see in the private sector. It's long paragraphs and not bullet points. This is 6 pages long. It is a lot more detailed, they'll say. So just a couple of things on interviews. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but make sure you can market yourself, market your degree in an interview. Make sure you check the website. You'd be surprised how many people do not check the website of a company that they're looking for. You'd be surprised how many people are too informal. How many people are late? How many people are not dressed up? How many people are going in the first second of an interview, calling people by their first names? I was shocked by this because I would never do that in an interview. But now that I've interviewed dozens of people, you'd be shocked at how many times that these easy issues, easy layups get missed. And then obviously explain value added. And always have a question. You'd be surprised how many people don't have a question at the end of the interview. In fact, have this question. Sir or ma'am, what do you want me to accomplish in my first 30 days, my first 60 days, my first 90 days? That is an impressive question to ask going forward. So just other points, internships, and some of these, even if you're a little bit older, are still appropriate. You might start off as a GS9, you'll be a GS12 if you're in the DC area. That's about $100,000 salary that you'd be making after 2 years. Each one of those organizations have internship programs that you are competitive for just by being a graduate student. Make sure you're aware of them and their deadlines. As I mentioned, use the alumni network. GW has a large presence in DC, and you've bought into that alumni network. So the best thing to do is get on LinkedIn, use the alumni GUI there, and try and ask people. I see that you work at Booz Allen. I just graduated this program, or I'm in this program. Be interested in what type of opportunities are there. I can't speak for everyone, but if someone emailed that to me and they were willing to meet me, I would take 15 minutes of my time, call them, talk them on the phone, grab coffee, whatever, and take it from there. I'll be honest, USA jobs without veterans preference is a hard sell. Maybe it is possible to get a job, doesn't hurt to apply, but the veterans preference thing really is puts your resume at the top. And then for newly separated veterans, you have some fellowships on Capitol Hill. I don't know if you want to work on Capitol Hill, but those opportunities are there. So again, if there's any issues going forward, please let me know. And good luck on the final. Good luck on the final paper. And good luck with the rest of the program.